No message, no call, no "Are you coming this year?" Just silence. And the silence always hurt more than rejection every year. I pretended it didn't matter. Every year, I told myself, they probably forgot. But when you're forgotten for the 10th time, it's not a mistake anymore. It's a decision. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm the middle child. Not the oldest, who inherited the family charm. Not the youngest, who inherited everyone's sympathy. I was just there. Or at least I used to be. Growing up, Christmas was everything to my mother. She would decorate the house like it belonged on a postcard. Red bows, pine scent, golden lights glowing in every window. But somehow the older I got, the less space there was for me. At first it started small. Daniel, this year we're keeping it small. Daniel, it's just going to be immediate family. Daniel, we thought you were busy anyway. Busy. I would sit in my apartment on Christmas Eve staring at my phone, waiting for a last-minute invite that never came. And the worst part, I would still send them gifts. Every year, I would ship presents to my parents' house, wrapped, labeled, thoughtful. And every year my mother would text, "Thank you, sweetie. We'll open it tonight." But I was never there to see it. I'd imagine them gathered around the fireplace. My brother Matt carving the turkey like he owned the place. My sister Lily laughing too loud. My father pretending everything was perfect. And an empty chair that nobody mentioned. Mine, the breaking point wasn't light, it was quiet. 2 years ago, I accidentally found their Christmas photo on Facebook. Yes, Facebook. That's how I learned Christmas had already happened. The caption read, "Nothing better than having all my children home for the holidays." All my children. I stared at the screen for a long time. There were 5 people in that picture. Mom, Matt and his wife, Lily and her fiancé. No me, I didn't comment. I didn't argue. Something inside me simply shut off. You see, anger is loud, but indifference, that's silent, and silent things grow. That night, instead of crying like I had in previous years, I opened my laptop. Not to scroll, not to complain, but to plan, if my family could forget me that easily. Maybe it was time I stopped waiting to be remembered. Let me tell you something about families. They don't always choose the strongest one to support. They choose the one who makes them look good. Matt was successful, or at least he acted successful. He worked in my father's company and never stopped reminding people about it. Lily married into money. So suddenly, she became the pride of the family. And me. I left. I started my own business 5 years ago. No funding, no family support, no "we believe in you," just me. And for the first 3 years, I struggled. Ramen dinners, second-hand furniture, long nights staring at spreadsheets. Not once did my father ask, "How can I help?" But when Matt needed temporary cash flow support, Dad wired him $50,000. I found out because Mom accidentally mentioned it during a rare phone call. "Your father just helps the children who stay close," she said. Stay close. That phrase haunted me. Did distance erase blood? Or was it just easier to forget the quiet son who never asked for anything? Last spring, everything changed. The company I built from scratch, a small real estate tech startup, finally exploded. Investors came in, contracts doubled, then tripled. And within 8 months, I sold a portion of it. The number that hit my bank account that day didn't feel real. I refreshed the screen 3 times. 7 figures. I sat there in silence. No one to celebrate with. No one to hug. That's when the idea came to me, not revenge, not yet, just presence. If they could ignore me in their cozy suburban home. Maybe it was time I created something impossible to ignore. I found it online. A mountain property 3 hours from our hometown. Massive windows, stone fireplace, snow-covered pines stretching for miles. It looked like something out of those perfect holiday movies my mother loved. I drove there the next morning. The air was sharp and cold. Snow crunched under my boots as I walked toward the deck. When I stepped inside, the view stole my breath. White mountains, total silence, peace. For the first time in years I didn't feel forgotten. I felt powerful. The realtor smiled at me. "Planning family holidays here." I paused. And then I said the words that surprised even me. Yes. But not the way anyone expected. I bought it that week. Paid in full, no mortgage, no co-signers, No father's approval. Just me. December came fast, and just like clockwork, my phone stayed quiet. No Christmas invite, no message, nothing. So this year, I sent one instead. A formal card, elegant, simple. Christmas Eve dinner at the Carter Mountain House, December 24th, 6 p.m. All family welcome, no emotion, no explanation, just an address. The reactions came quickly. First confusion, then curiosity, then panic. Matt called me for the first time in 8 months. You bought a what? Lily texted. Since when do you have a mountain house? And my mother. She called twice. I let it ring. Then she sent a message. Sweetie, why didn't you tell us? I smiled at the screen. Because for once, I wasn't the one waiting. What my family didn't realize was this. I didn't buy that house for revenge. I bought it for truth. Because this Christmas, there would be no pretending, no filtered photos, no captions about all my children, just reality, and reality has a way of exposing things. I decorated the house myself. A massive tree in the living room, lights glowing in every window, a long dining table set for 8. Yes, 8 chairs. I made sure of that. And at the head of the table, my seat. For the first time in my life, I wasn't begging for a place. I owned the house. I owned the table, and this year, they would walk through my door. Not the other way around. The fireplace crackled. The table was ready. 6:00 p.m. came. Headlights appeared in the driveway. One by one. I took a slow breath as the first knock echoed through the mountain house. After years of being forgotten, my family was finally standing at my door. But they had no idea that this Christmas would change everything. The knock on the door wasn't loud, but it echoed through the entire house like a warning. I stood there for a second longer than necessary, letting the moment settle in my chest. For years, I had been the one standing outside emotionally, waiting to be let in. Now they were the ones waiting. Funny how life shifts when you stop chasing people who never turned around. I opened the door slowly. Cold air rushed in first. Then my mother's perfume. Then her smile, wide, bright, and slightly unsure. Oh my God, she whispered, stepping inside. Daniel, this place is incredible. Behind her. My father looked around with quiet calculation. Matt walked in like he was inspecting an investment property. Lily's eyes moved from the chandelier to the windows to the staircase, measuring value without saying a word. I stepped aside and let them enter. Welcome, I said calmly. They were all dressed in expensive coats. My mother carried a pie. Store-bought. She used to bake everything herself. Funny what changes when you're not the favorite gathering spot anymore. Matt gave me a quick handshake, no hug. Some mountain house, huh? When did this happen? Recently, I replied. Thought I'd host Christmas this year. Lily gave a small laugh. Look at you. Look at me. That phrase held more weight than she realized. They walked into the living room and stopped when they saw the massive Christmas tree glowing beside the stone fireplace. The table was visible from where they stood, perfectly set, candles lit, 8 chairs waiting. I watched their faces carefully. Surprise, curiosity. A flicker of something else, maybe discomfort. My mother walked toward the windows and gasped at the snowy mountains. It's beautiful. Why didn't you tell us about any of this? Because you never asked how I was doing. But I didn't say that. I've been busy, I answered. We sat down in the living room first. I poured drinks. My father accepted his quietly. Matt declined and said he was responsible, as always. The reliable son. The one who stayed close. Small talk began like it always does, stiff and surface, levered. Busy. Very. They asked questions now. So many questions. It almost made me laugh. For years my life updates were an afterthought. Now every detail seemed fascinating. How much land comes with this place? My father asked casually, pretending not to sound impressed. Enough, I said. Matt leaned back. Must have cost a lot. There it was. Not, I'm proud of you. Not, that's amazing, just cost. I felt something shift inside me. But I kept my voice steady. It did. Dinner was ready soon after. I had hired catering, but I plated everything, guys. I plated everything, the one serving. I wanted them to feel it. As we moved to the table, there was a subtle pause, 8 chairs. But only 6 of us, Matt noticed first. Expecting guests. I looked at the 2 empty chairs. Yes, I said calmly. I've been expecting them for years. Silence fell like heavy snow. My mother's hand froze near her wine glass. Daniel. I met her eyes for the first time that night. Every Christmas. I continued evenly. I kept a seat open in my apartment. Just in case you changed your mind. No one moved. I wasn't raising my voice, I didn't need to. I'd check my phone all night, I said. Wondering if maybe you forgot to invite me. Or maybe the message got lost. Lily looked down at her plate. My father cleared his throat. It wasn't intentional. I let out a soft laugh. Not cruel, just honest. 10 years in a row isn't an accident. The fire cracked behind us. Matt shifted in his seat. You live 3 states away. It's not like you made much effort either. There it was. Blame. I nodded slowly. You're right. I stopped making effort after I realized I was the only one making any. My mother's eyes were glossy now. We thought you wanted space. Space. That word again. The comfortable excuse. I wanted to be included, I said. There's a difference. No one argued. Because there wasn't one. Dinner continued, but the air had changed. The polite smiles were gone. The truth was sitting at the table now. And it wasn't leaving quietly. Halfway through the meal, my father finally asked the question he'd been holding back. So how successful are you? Exactly? Straight to it. I wiped my mouth with a napkin and leaned back. I sold part of my company last spring. Matt blinked. For how much? I looked at him. Enough to buy this house outright. Silence again. His jaw tightened slightly. Lily looked genuinely shocked. You never told us you were doing that well. I shrugged lightly. No one asked. And that was the truth that hurt the most. They didn't ignore me because I failed. They ignored me because I didn't fit their picture. I didn't stay under my father's shadow like Matt. I didn't marry into wealth like Lily. I built something alone. And they weren't there for the building. But now, they were definitely here for the results. After dinner, my mother pulled me aside near the staircase. Sweetheart, she whispered. We never meant to make you feel unwanted. I studied her face. She looked older than I remembered. You didn't mean to, I said gently. But you did. Her eyes filled. Can we fix this? That question hung in the air longer than any accusation had. Could we fix it? Or was this just temporary regret, because the overlooked son turned out to be successful? From across the room, I could see Matt and my father talking quietly. Their expressions weren't soft. They were calculating. That's when I realized something important. This wasn't just about Christmas. This was about control. For years, I had been the child who didn't matter enough to prioritize. Now I was the one holding the power. The location, the wealth, the invitation. And they didn't know how to sit with that. I walked back to the fireplace and picked up 2 envelopes I had placed there earlier. I held them in my hand and felt their weight. Because this Christmas wasn't just about confronting the past. It was about making sure it never repeated itself. I looked at my family, seated in my mountain house under my roof, at my table. For years, I said calmly, I waited to be invited. I placed the envelopes on the table. This year I decided I don't wait anymore. Matt frowned. What's that supposed to mean? I gave him a small, steady smile. It means this Christmas is different. And they still had no idea just how different it was about to become. The fire popped loudly. The only sound in a room that had suddenly forgotten how to breathe. All eyes were on the 2 envelopes resting on the table in front of me. Matt looked irritated, Lily looked nervous, my father looked analytical, my mother looked afraid. I didn't rush for years. I had rushed to earn their attention. I had rushed to impress them. I had rushed to prove myself. Not tonight. I spent a long time thinking about what I wanted this Christmas to mean. I said calmly. Not just for me. Matt leaned forward slightly. You're being dramatic. I ignored him. These envelopes aren't threats. I continued. They're decisions. That word landed heavier than expected. Decisions. Because for the first time, I wasn't reacting to them. I had already decided. I picked up the first envelope and slid it toward my parents. This one is for you. My mother hesitated before opening it. My father took it instead. He pulled out the document inside. His eyes moved quickly across the page. Then they slowed. What is this? He asked quietly. It's a property deed, I replied, for this house. Matt straightened immediately. What? My father looked up at me sharply. You're transferring it? No, I said evenly. Read the full document. He continued scanning. Silence stretched again. Then his expression changed, confusion first. Then realization. It's in your name permanently, he said. Yes? Matt exhaled impatiently. So what's the point? The point, I said calmly, is that it also includes a clause. My mother's fingers tightened around her napkin. A clause stating, I continued, that this house can only ever host Christmas if every member of this immediate family is formally invited. Invite in. The room went still. If one person is excluded, I added, the property will instead be donated to a winter shelter charity in the following year. Lily blinked. You're joking. I wasn't. No more selective gatherings, I said quietly. No more quiet erasing. If we celebrate as a family, we celebrate as all of us. Or not at all. Matt let out a dry laugh. You're seriously trying to control Christmas now. I looked directly at him. No. I'm making sure no one controls it again. That shut him up. My father studied me carefully. For the first time in my life, I saw something new in his eyes. Not dismissal, not mild approval, respect. You went through a lawyer for this, he said. Yes, why? Because I learned from you, I almost said. Instead, I answered truthfully. Because words weren't enough in the past. No one argued with that. I picked up the second envelope. This one, I said slowly. S for Matt. His jaw tightened immediately. What is it? Open it? He did less gracefully than my father had. His eyes scanned the paper, then scanned again. His face paled slightly. What is this? He asked, but his voice had changed. It's the original loan agreement Dad gave you 4 years ago, I said calmly. My father's head snapped toward Matt. Matt shifted. Why do you have that? Because when I started doing well, I explained. I quietly bought the outstanding business debt your company owed to an investment group. My father looked stunned. That was private. Business is business, I replied evenly. Matt's knuckles turned, holding the paper. So what are you saying? I'm saying, I continued calmly, that your company doesn't owe outside investors anymore. He swallowed. It owes you, yes. Silence exploded through the room. Lily's eyes were wide. My mother looked between us like she was watching thing fragile crack open. You're threatening me, Matt said. No, I said. If I were threatening you, I would have called the loan in last month. His breathing quickened slightly. What? He asked, cautiously. A reset. He frowned. The debt, I said clearly, no conditions, no interest. Gone. Matt stared at me like he didn't understand the language anymore. You're just forgiving it? He asked. Why? That question wasn't sarcastic, it was confused. And maybe a little humbled. I looked at him steadily. Because I don't want leverage over my brother, I said quietly. I just wanted you to understand that I could have had it. That hit harder than anger ever would have. For years, Matt had been the golden son because he was stable, because he was loyal, because he worked beside Dad. Tonight, for the first time, he realized something uncomfortable. He hadn't been stronger, he had just been closer. And I wasn't behind, I was simply bidding somewhere else. My father leaned back slowly, processing everything. You could have destroyed his company, he said carefully. I nodded once. But you didn't. No. Why? I held his gaze. Because I know what it feels like to be erased. The room softened. Even the fire seemed quieter now. My mother started crying. Not loudly, but in that silent way where tears fall before words do. I never knew it hurt you that much, she whispered. That's the problem, I said gently. You never asked. There was no accusation in my voice anymore, just truth. Matt looked at the papers in his hand, then at me. You really would have forgiven it no matter what? He asked. He hesitated. Even if we didn't come tonight. I paused, that answer mattered. Yes, I said finally. But I would have donated the house next year. A small, stunned breath left Lily. You're serious about that? Completely. My father rubbed his chin slowly. For years, he said quietly, I thought distance meant independence. I thought you didn't need us. I didn't need money, I replied. I needed presence. That was the word. Presence. It hung over the table like something sacred. Matt folded the document carefully. I was jealous of you, he admitted suddenly. Everyone looked at him. You left, he said. You built something alone. I stayed. I inherited expectations. I never had space to fail. You had freedom. I hadn't expected that, not from him. I didn't know you felt that way, I said honestly. He let out a humorless laugh. Of course you didn't. We never talk. That landed too. Lily cleared her throat softly. I didn't exclude you on purpose, she said quietly. Mom usually handled invitations. My mother winced. I thought you boys were fine, she whispered. You never complained. I smiled faintly. I learned early that complaining didn't change anything. The tension in the room was no longer sharp. It was heavy instead. Honest. Real outside, snow continued falling against the massive windows inside. Something fragile was shifting. My father stood slowly. He walked around the table. And then he did something he hadn't done since I was a teenager. Not tight. Not dramatic. Just firm. Present. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. Wait, but real. My mother followed, holding me longer than expected. Lily hugged me next. Matt hesitated for half a second. Then he stepped forward. No more empty chairs, he muttered. No more empty chairs, I agreed. We returned to the table, but the atmosphere was different now. Not perfect, but different. And sometimes different is the beginning of better. Later that night, after dessert and quieter conversations, my mother walked to the windows again. It's beautiful here, she said softly. You're all welcome next year, I replied. She turned to Mead. All of us, I said. Because that was the whole point. Christmas was never about revenge. It was about visibility. And this year, I made sure I was seen. Not by yelling, not by cutting ties, but by becoming impossible to overlook. The real power wasn't in the money. It wasn't in the house. It wasn't even in the debt I could have collected. It was in choosing not to become the thing that hurt me. I didn't destroy them. I didn't humiliate them. I held up a mirror instead. And sometimes, that's stronger than revenge. As midnight approached, we stepped outside together. Snow covered the driveway in a perfect white blanket. Matt looked out over the mountains. You really built all this on your own? He asked quietly. Yes, he nodded slowly. Respect. It was simple, but genuine, and that was enough. For the first time in 10 years, my phone wasn't silent on Christmas. It was in my pocket, and I wasn't waiting for it to ring. Because this time, I was already at the table. The next morning, I woke up before everyone else. The mountain house was quiet again. But it was a different kind of quiet than the ones I had known in past Decembers. This silence wasn't heavy. It wasn't accusing. It didn't wrap around my chest like a reminder that I had been forgotten. It felt settled. I walked downstairs and started the coffee. The sky outside was pale blue, sunlight reflecting off untouched snow. For years, Christmas morning had meant scrolling through social media, watching other families post matching pajamas and messy kitchens, and smiling group photos. I used to zoom in on the background of my family's photos, searching for proof that maybe they had left space for me somewhere out of frame. This morning, they were upstairs, in my house, sleeping under my roof. That alone felt like something had shifted permanently. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps on the stairs. It was my father. He looked around the kitchen slowly, taking it in a way he hadn't allowed himself to do the night before. You're up early, he said. Always am, I replied, handing him a mug. He accepted it, nodding once in appreciation. We stood side by side at the window, watching the sunlight hit the mountain peaks. You know, he began carefully, when you were younger, I thought pushing you to be independent was helping you. I didn't interrupt, he continued. I treated Matt like he needed guidance. I treated Lily like she needed protection. I treated you like you didn't need anything. I let that sit for a moment. You never asked if I did, I said quietly. He nodded. That's my mistake. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud. But it was honest. And honesty from him had always been rare currency. I thought if I stepped back, you'd grow stronger, he admitted. I didn't realize stepping back completely feels like stepping away. That sentence mattered. For years, I had tried to explain that absence doesn't build strength. It builds distance. I did grow stronger, I said calmly. Just not because I was alone. I grew stronger because I had to be. He absorbed that without defending himself. You don't owe us anything, he said after a pause. I gave a small smile. I know. And that was the first time in my life I believed it. Soon the rest of the house started to wake up. Lily came downstairs wrapped in a blanket, her hair messy in a way that looked more human than polished. Matt followed, checking his phone out of habit, then stopping himself when he realized what day it was. No one rushed. No one checked schedules. For once, there was nowhere else to be. We made breakfast together. It was awkward at first, bumping into each other in the kitchen, small hesitations about who should do what. But it slowly turned into something softer. At one point, my mother laughed while trying to flip pancakes and failed miserably. The spatula bent. The pancake folded in half. We all laughed. And it wasn't forced. I realized something then: we weren't broken beyond repair. We were just disconnected. And disconnection feels permanent until someone decides to bridge it. After breakfast, we exchanged gifts. They hadn't planned for this, obviously. Their gifts were small, rushed, probably bought on the way up the mountain. I didn't care, because this year, the gift wasn't wrapped, it was effort. Matt handed me a small box. Didn't expect to be celebrating here. He muttered inside was a watch. Simple. Elegant. Figured you probably already own better. He said. It's perfect, I replied. And I meant that. My mother gave me a photo album. Not new photos, old ones, childhood Christmases. All three of us kids sitting under the tree. I flipped through it slowly. There was never a Christmas without you, she whispered. Even when you weren't there. That sentence hurt, but in a healing way. Then make sure there never is again, I said gently. She nodded. Later that afternoon, while the others rested or talked quietly, Matt stepped outside onto the deck. I followed him. The air was cold but refreshing. He leaned against the railing. You know, he said without looking at me, I thought you invited us to show off. I laughed softly. I did. He blinked, surprised. But not the way you think. He finally looked at me. I wanted you to see me, I continued. Not my success. Just me. He nodded slowly. I didn't see how much you pulled away, he admitted. I just thought you were doing your own thing. I was, I said. Because I figured no one was saving me a seat. He swallowed. That Facebook post, Mom's caption. He said quietly. I remember you didn't comment that year. I saw it. He winced. We're idiots sometimes. Yeah, I replied with a small smile. You are. He nudged my shoulder lightly. There was no tension in it. Just brotherhood rediscovering itself. As the sun began to set behind the mountains, we gathered in the living room again. This time closer together. Not strategically spaced like the night before. My mother leaned her head against my father's shoulder. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor near the fireplace. Matt relaxed into the couch like he wasn't bracing for something anymore. And I realized something powerful. Revenge would have been easier. I could have embarrassed them. I could have exposed every financial detail. I could have cut them off permanently. But revenge keeps you connected to pain, bound to it. What I wanted wasn't revenge. It was closure, and maybe correction. As night fell, we took a family photo in front of the massive tree, all of us, no filters, no captions yet, just us. Before my mother could post it, I said gently, let's wait. She looked confused. Why? Because this one isn't for social media, I said. This one's for us. She lowered her phone slowly and smiled. When it was time for them to leave the next morning, something unexpected happened. They didn't rush to their cars. They lingered. Matt looked at me. We're hosting New Year's at our place. You're coming. It wasn't a question. Send it in writing, I replied, raising an eyebrow. He smirked. I will. Lily hugged me tightly. My mother kissed my cheek. My father held my shoulder a second longer than usual. Then they drove away down the snow-covered road. I stood there watching until their cars disappeared around the bend. And I didn't feel empty. I felt steady. For years, I thought success would be the thing that made them value me. But that wasn't the truth. Value came the moment I valued myself enough to stop begging for inclusion. I didn't buy a mountain house to prove I was better. I bought it because I was done shrinking. And sometimes, the strongest revenge isn't hurting people back. It's showing them that you never needed their permission to rise. The following week, a formal invitation arrived in my email. Subject line: New Year's, all of us. All of us. I smiled at the screen. Not because I had won, but because something had been restored. Christmas used to remind me of what I lacked. Now it reminded me of what I built. Not just a business, not just a house, but boundaries. And from the moment you set boundaries, people learn how to treat you. Some walk away, some adjust. Mine adjusted. And as the snow continued to fall quietly over the mountains I now owned, I finally understood something I wish I had learned years ago. If they forget to invite you, build your own table. Make it bigger, make it brighter. And when they finally knock, you decide whether to open the door. For the first time in years, I wasn't wondering whether I would be included. I wasn't staring at my phone hoping for a last-minute message. The invitation had come 3 days after Christmas, formal, clear, intentional. All of us. Matt had even attached the details like a corporate memo. Address, dress code, dinner plans. It made me laugh. But it also meant something. They were trying. When I drove up to Matt's house that night, the lights were already glowing. Music spilled faintly from inside. Cars lined the driveway. And for a split second, the old feeling crept back in. What if this was temporary? What if Christmas was just guilt? What if, by next year, things went back to normal? I sat in my car longer than I needed to. Then I remembered something. I wasn't the old version of myself anymore. I wasn't the one hoping to be chosen. I was the one who could walk away if I wasn't respected. That changes everything. I stepped out of the car and walked to the door. Before I could knock, Matt stood there. "You're late," he said. I glanced at my watch. "It's 6:59. He smirked, still late, but there was warmth in his eyes. He stepped aside without hesitation. No awkward pause. No confusion, just space made immediately. The house was full of people, friends, extended relatives, neighbors. Lily spotted me first. "Daniel's here," she announced casually, like it was the most normal thing in the world. And maybe that was the point. No grand introduction. No surprise appearance. Just belonging. My mother walked over and hugged me without ceremony. "I saved you a seat," she whispered. Saved. I felt the word sink in. Dinner flowed more naturally than it ever had before. Conversations included me without forcing me in. When someone asked about business, it didn't turn into interrogation. When I asked Matt about his company, he answered without defensiveness. At one point, my father raised a glass for a toast. He cleared his throat, getting everyone's attention. "This year," he began, "I learned something important." The room quieted. I learned that success isn't measured by who stays closest to you physically, but by whether you stay connected. His eyes met mine briefly. And I planned to do better. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't poetic. But it was public. That mattered. After dinner, while others laughed and moved toward the living room for the countdown, my mother pulled me into the kitchen. "You know," she said softly, "I posted the mountain house photo today." I raised an eyebrow. "You did?" She smiled gently. "Yes, and the caption says, 'Grateful to have all my children together this Christmas.'" I held her gaze. "All," I repeated. "All," she confirmed. It was true. Midnight approached quickly. The room filled with noise, countdowns beginning early, glasses clinking, phones recording. I stood between Matt and Lily as everyone shouted the final seconds. 10. My heart was steady. 9. Not hopeful, just present. 2, 1. Cheers exploded. Confetti popped. People hugged. And without thinking, Matt pulled me into a side hug, shaking my shoulder. "Happy New Year, Mountain Man," he joked. Lily hugged me next, then my parents. It was simple, normal. But for someone who had once been excluded year after year, normal felt extraordinary. Later that night, after most guests left and only family remained to clean up, my father and I carried empty glasses to the kitchen. He looked at me thoughtfully. "You changed the dynamic," he said quietly. "I didn't change it," I replied. "I stopped accepting it." "He not takes courage." "It took pain," I almost said. But I didn't need to relive that part anymore. Driving home after midnight, fireworks fading in the distance. I thought about the past 10 years. All the silent Christmas Eves, all the unseen achievements, all the empty chairs. And I realized something powerful. Those years weren't wasted. They built me. The loneliness taught me self-reliance. The exclusion taught me boundaries. The silence taught me value. If they had invited me every single year, maybe I would have stayed small. Maybe I would have waited for permission. Waited for approval. But waited for validation. But being forgotten forced me to build something no one could take away. Confidence. Not arrogant confidence. Quiet certainty. The kind that doesn't beg to be included, because it knows it belongs anywhere it stands. A few months later, spring melted the snow around the mountain house. I hosted again, not just for holidays, but randomly. Sometimes they came, sometimes they invited me. And even when schedules clashed, one thing never happened again. I was never excluded. Because once you make your absence visible, people understand the cost of ignoring it. One evening, sitting alone on the mountain deck watching the sunset turn the sky orange and gold, I replayed everything in my mind. I didn't win by humiliating them. I didn't win by cutting them off. I won by showing up differently. By refusing to shrink. By turning pain into position. And here's the truth most people don't talk about. Revenge feels powerful for a moment. Grit feels powerful for a lifetime. If you're watching this and you've ever been the forgotten one, the uninvited one, the sibling who didn't fit the family script, hear me clearly. You don't need to destroy anyone to be seen. You don't need to beg for space at someone else's table. Build your own. And build it so strong, so steady, so undeniable, that when they finally look your way, they realize you were never the problem. Their blindness was. And sometimes, the greatest comeback isn't revenge. It's elevation. This year, Christmas won't be about whether I get a text. It won't be about waiting for headlights in someone else's driveway. Because now, I am not waiting to be invited. I am the invitation. And that changed everything. Years passed. Not in a dramatic, cinematic way, just quietly. The kind of years where life settles into patterns. The mountain house became more than a statement. It became tradition. Some years we spent Christmas there. Some years at Matt's, once. Even at Lily's new place after she moved closer. And every single time, without exception, the message increased simple words. All of us. But here's the part no one sees in the photos. Healing isn't instant. Just because one Christmas changed everything didn't mean old habits disappeared overnight. There were moments when my mother slipped back into favoritism without realizing it. Moments when my father took asking Matt's opinion first. Moments when Lily assumed who'll be fine. Because I was the strong one. The difference? I didn't stay silent anymore. One evening, 2 years after the mountain house Christmas, we were planning the holiday schedule. My mother started listing dates and casually said, "We'll confirm once Matt checks his availability." She didn't say it intentionally. But she didn't need to. The old version of me would have smiled and said nothing. This version didn't. "Let's confirm when all of us check availability," I said calmly. No tension. No anger. Just correction, and she caught it immediately. "You're right," she said softly. "That's growth, not perfection." Matt changed too. He stopped assuming I'd adjust my schedule around theirs. He started calling just to talk, not to ask about money, not to compare careers, just to talk. One day he said something that stuck with me. "You know what scared me the most that Christmas," he admitted. "What?" "That you didn't need us anymore." I thought about that. I never stopped needing family, I told him. I just stopped needing approval. That's the difference most people confuse. Approval is fragile. Connection is choice. A few more years passed, and life did what life does. My parents aged, slower steps, more doctor appointments. Longer pauses between stories. One winter afternoon, my father and I were alone at the mountain house. Snow falling lightly outside. He stood near the fireplace, looking around like he was memorizing the place. "You know," he said quietly, "I used to think success meant control. Providing. Deciding." He glanced at me. "But you taught me something else." I waited. You showed me that respect can't be demanded, it has to be earned. Even from your own children. That was the closest thing to an apology I would ever get. And it was enough. Because I didn't need him to carry guilt. I just needed him to see me. And he did, the biggest twist of all. The mountain house stopped being about me, it became about everyone. Birthdays. Random weekends. Snowstorms where we got stuck together and laughed about it. The house that was once my silent answer to years of exclusion became something softer. A place where no one felt secondary. One night, long after everyone else had gone to bed, my mother and I sat in the quiet kitchen. "I'm glad you bought this house," she said. "Me too." She hesitated. "You know we never meant to hurt you." I smiled gently. "I know. And I did. Because time gives you perspective that pain never can." They didn't wake up each Christmas thinking, "Let's exclude him." They fell into patterns. Comfort, convenience, proximity, and I fell into silence. We all played a part in it. But only one of us changed the pattern. Here's the truth that took me years to understand. Being forgotten hurts. But sometimes people don't realize they've forgotten you, because you've made it too easy. I made it easy. I didn't complain. I didn't show hurt. I didn't create consequences. Until I did. Not by yelling, not by cutting ties, not by revenge, but by raising my value in my own life. Success wasn't the weapon. Self-worth was. And once you operate from self-worth, conversations change, energy changes, positions shift. The final Christmas before my parents sold the family home, we gathered at the mountain house again. Snow heavier than usual, fireplace blazing, long table set for 8, even though some chairs were empty now for different reasons. Kids had grown up. Schedules had expanded. But the tradition stayed. As we sat down for dinner, my father looked around the table and smiled. "No empty chairs," he said. And everyone understood what he meant. It wasn't about physical chairs anymore. It was about emotional presence. About checking in, about inviting intentionally. About choosing connection instead of convenience. After dinner, we stood outside under a sky full of slow falling snow. Lily wrapped her coat tighter. Matt handed me a drink. My mother linked her arm through mine. And I realized something that surprised me. I wasn't proud of the house anymore. I was proud of the boundary. Because that boundary didn't push them away. It taught them how to stay. If you've ever been the sibling who felt invisible, the child who felt like an afterthought, the one who watched family photos and wondered where you fit, listen carefully. You can't force people to see your worth. But you can refuse to stay where it's ignored. You can build, you can grow, you can elevate, and sometimes the most powerful move isn't cutting them off. It's stepping up. So high, so steady, so clear in who you are, that they have no choice but to adjust. I used to think Christmas was about being invited. Now I know it's about intention. And intention starts with you. Every year they forgot about inviting me. This year and every year after. They don't forget. Not because I demanded it, not because I threatened them. But because I showed them what life looks like without my silence. And that changed everything. If there's a lesson in my story, it's this. Don't beg for a seat at a table where you're optional. Build a table so solid, so warm, so undeniable, that the people who matter will pull up a chair and stay.